Okay, y'all, so I did a thing. I'm decorating for Halloween, and I made these creepy apothecary bottles for my mantle, and they turned out so good. I just had to share this cheap and easy DIY with y'all. Most of the supplies needed, I already had on hand. You're gonna need some paint, a couple of paint brushes. As far as the jars, I found this jar at the Dollar Tree. It was in the floral section. It was $1, so I picked it up. The beer bottles, I just had my husband save some beer bottles, and I just took the labels off, washed them up. This mason jar, it's plastic. I also found that at the Dollar Tree. And this dairy bottle, I got it from Hobby Lobby some time ago. You're gonna need some hot glue, a couple of printable apothecary labels. You can just Google like Halloween labels free, and they're like everywhere. You can just print them off. You're gonna need a couple of containers to put paint in or put your wax in. You're also going to need some metallic paint or some rub and buff. I use rub and buff because that's what I had, and you're going to need some scissors. You're also going to need some embellishments to put inside and outside the bottles, spider webbing, little Spanish moss, a couple of jewels if you have them, some fabric, some twine. I found these eyeballs at the Dollar Tree, and I just made them look a little bit more realistic. Some cork toppers for my bottles, and I found these skulls also. I used these and I put a little white paint on them just to make them look a bit more fossilized. Just depends on what you want. For your clear containers, we want to make this look a little dingy, so you're going to take a little bit of acrylic black paint, water it down, whatever you're going to put inside your jar, your metallic paint or your rub and buff, and a hairdryer just to speed up the drying process. We just want to make it look dirty, make it look dusty. So you're going to just take a little bit of the paint, watered down paint, and you're going to paint the inside of the container. You can do the outside if you choose, but it just was easier to do the inside. I like the effect. Kind of looks like a little bit of a dusty film on the jar. So I'm going to do this with both of my clear jars. And then I'm going to use my hairdryer to dry out the inside, make sure there's no actual liquid left on the inside of the container. And I forgot to mention, you're going to need some black spray paint. These containers are plastic, so I want to make them look not so plastic. And so I spray painted them black, and I'm going to add a little bit of this rub and buff or your metallic paint if that's what you have. And we're just going to give this kind of like a antique finish. I'm just going to rub around the edges with this gold leaf rub and buff. It's really easy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just didn't want it to look plastic. Just wanted to give it a little antique look. And that's it for our cloche. See how it looks real dusty and old? So now I'm going to add our label and whatever you're going to put inside your jar. I printed off a couple of different labels on sticker paper because that's what I had on hand. If you don't have sticker paper, that's fine. You can use regular printer paper. But we want to make this label look aged. So I'm going to wrinkle it up, ball it up, and I'm going to use some of my antiquing wax to age the label. So I'm going to stick my label onto my container, and I'm going to take just a tiny amount of the antiquing wax on my brush, and I'm just going to brush it all over the label to give it that aged look. And so now I'm just going to add a little bit of this Spanish moss that I also found at the Dollar Tree, just to add to the creepiness of the cloche. I'm also going to put in my eyeballs or whatever you're going to use for your embellishments, and put that Spanish moss on top, add my base, and that's it. We're pretty much done with our antique, old, creepy cloche. So for the mason jar, I decided to do bone dust. For the bone dust, I'm just using some ashes from some sage that we burned around the house. You're going to need your antiquing wax again, a little scrap of fabric, some twine, and you're just going to put your so-called bone dust inside your jar and put the lid back on. We're going to do the same thing with the label. We're going to make the paper look aged, just like we did with the cloche. So we're just going to wrinkle it up, stick it on, and use some of the antiquing wax to give it the aged look. So for this jar, I'm going to use a little scrap of burlap fabric, and I'm going to attach it to the lid, and I'm going to wrap some twine around it, just to give it more of an old effect, instead of leaving it the gold. If you don't have any fabric on hand, you can always just maybe spray paint the lid black if that's what you want to do. You don't have to do this. This is just an additional embellishment that I wanted to add to my jar. So here I'm just using my hot glue to secure the twine and the fabric to the lid. And just use your scissors to cut off any excess twine. And here is our mason jar full of bone dust. Also, I'm going to take a little bit of that antiquing wax to rub across the fabric that we put on, just to make it look a little dirtier. My last two bottles have already been spray painted black. The same rules apply for the labels. For this bottle, I'm going to use my cork topper as an embellishment. I'm just going to use a little bit of the hot glue to secure the top to the bottle. I chose the label Love Potion, so I'm going to take this little metal heart embellishment that I've had laying around. I'm just going to take some twine, and I'm going to attach the heart and the twine to my bottle and just wrap it around the top of the bottle. I'm also going to add a couple of highlights to my bottle with the hot glue. I'm just going to make some little hearts. You don't have to do this. That's just me being extra. So I'm just going to make some little highlighted hearts on the bottle and use my rub and buff or metallic paint to bring the hearts out and make them more noticeable. And so here I'm just adding a few more highlights to the bottle. You don't have to do this. I'm just giving it more of an aged effect. I did this on a previous bottle that I had made. I'm just going to add some of this cobweb that I found at the Dollar Tree to the bottle. And you really got to stretch and make it thin to make it look realistic. You're just going to wrap it around the bottle. I'm just going to keep on stretching until I can get it as thin as possible, and then I'm just going to attach the excess to the bottom of the bottle with just a dab of hot glue. And here's our Love Potion bottle, all dirty and dusty with cobwebs. I love how this one turned out. I think it looks really good. And so for my final bottle of poison, I'm just going to take some of that twine and some of that fabric and attach it to the top of the bottle using my hot glue. And with this bottle, I'm going to give the effect that there's actually like some poison spilling out of the top of the bottle. I'm just going to use some hot glue to make some little drips, And I'm going to use my Rub and Buff to highlight the supposed liquid coming out of the bottle. This is one of my favorites. I really love how this one turned out. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but these turned out so great. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Instagram at the Searls Estate. Until next time, stay fly and DIY. Bye.